David. David.
He's falling in a beautiful swirling pattern.
David.
Okay, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the David Wells Experiment, and I am your host, David Wells. Just got out of church. Well, we had a little college group meeting, the young adults, and now I'm off. Not sure what I'm going to do. I was about to do my usual default setting of putting on a podcast or listening to music. But then I'm like, okay, that's more time that you could be doing a podcast. So I would say the ride home from church is usually a decent amount of time. But I don't think I'm going to go straight home to church after church. It's funny, like I've had 3/4 of a regular scoop of pre-workout, and my brain still feels a little bit scattered, but I just feel more compelled to do stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel more compelled to be more outgoing and venture out of my comfort zone somewhat. So that's cool. I feel that's one of the oddest. Oh, great example. Or something having to do with the subject of comfort zones. We had some new people show up in our church, but also in our young adults group. We call it the Korean word for that is 청년부. So we had some new people in our young adults group, and one person really didn't want to get up and say hi. So I made it a point afterwards, when the meeting was over, to go up and introduce myself. And I know how nervous it can be to meet new people. Geez, it really is hot in this car. If you hear more ambient well, you're not going to hear ambient noise. The AI filter is going to take care of that. But if for whatever reason you hear something, that'll be it, any irregularity. But I'm confident that once I pass it through the filter, that's what'll happen. I may go visit my grandfather's grave after this, but I think first up, I'm gonna go by the bookstore, Barnes & Noble. I saw this book there that was about old Korean folk tales, and it had it written in Korean and in English, and the translation seemed to be pretty accurate. So I'm going to look into that. And it also had a list of vocab words. So that might be one more thing in my arsenal of tools to try to make something. God knows I do need to put in a greater effort, because at the end of last year, and even before that, I sort of stopped trying. I had this idea that I was going to do this big push. Gosh, this is a narrow street. But anyway, I got distracted by some big life events. And yeah, but it's never too late to course correct. Although I know some people who have gone through some stuff and they've just pushed through. But I suppose you could say I'm not that strong a person. I feel like I didn't have the wiring or the hardware and or the software to do it. But I feel like I'm going to make a great leap forward. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I'm trying to do more things that I've put off doing as of recent. I feel like, I guess the best way to put it is, in Deadpool's words, maximum effort, which is, I think that was the first tattoo that my brother got. I'd have to double check, but on one of his biceps, because he's basically Captain America, he has on one of his biceps written Deadpool slogan, maximum effort. I guess you could say in that regard, I have not been giving maximum effort to all my goals and dreams and ideals. Enough has happened that, some people might say it's reasonable or understandable that, you know, I wasn't able to fully divulge myself to those pursuits. But I know some people would say it's just an excuse. I really don't like using the word excuse. Like, so I've divulged this before. I really, like, I really don't like how one of my managers, she said I hadn't been doing as good of a job as I usually done. And I just told her, yeah, I went through some stuff, like my grandpa passed away, and I just don't feel like I'm the same like I used to be. Like, I'm not wired the same. And a month or so later, she sits me down and is like, you know, I know you've been through some stuff, but really it's just an excuse to not work that hard. I'm not repeating what she said verbatim, but it was the gist. And I know she didn't mean it that way, but it felt like she was saying that my grandpa's death was just an excuse, or that he was an excuse. And I think if I was any other person, I may have walked out, but I'm not any other person. I'm me. Also, I have bills and stuff to pay. So, of course I didn't walk out. Because one of my great life lessons was, like, not to react to stuff. I think I've shared this story before, but I will go ahead and share it again. One of my greatest life lessons I ever learned was from playing a video game. I was deep into the game. I would say maybe 80% done. It was a classic platformer, Mega Man X4. Anyway, I was getting to the end of the game, and I came across, it wasn't the final boss, but it was one of those almost final bosses. Like, you're a couple of boss fights away from being done. So anyway, I get to this one guy, and he is incredibly difficult to beat. Like, I feel like I'm just jumping out of the way, trying not to die or lose health. And every time every time I approach this dude, I'd wind up dying, and after losing so many lives, I'd have to go back to the beginning of the level. And I was getting really frustrated. And then I had what I believe alcoholics call a moment of sobriety, to quote Samuel L. Jackson's character from Pulp Fiction. And I had this epiphany of, like, okay, let's go into the fight again, but this time you're not going to do anything. You're not going to worry about not getting hit. You're not going to worry about inflicting damage. The sole purpose is to not engage, but to observe. So I went to the level, and I paid attention to what the dude was doing. And I died several times again. But as I kept doing it over and over again, I saw through this guy's bag of tricks. I'm like, okay, he's going to jump here. This is where he's going to be on the ground. This is where he'll be jumping in the air. And I think this is a point where I could inflict damage. And after doing this several times, I finally decided to engage. And I avoided getting hit by, like, a lot. And I finally got him down to halfway health when he changed his tactics. And I just did the same thing again. I observed, and after I observed a lot, then I engaged, and I beat him. And I guess it taught me not to be so reactionary. And that's a life lesson I've carried with me ever since. I must have been, I was in high school. And honestly, it felt like a better life lesson than what a lot of my teachers had tried to teach me. I just hear so much the idea of video games rot your brain, but it did not rot my blah. It didn't rot my brain in that case. So I learned not to react. But anyway, going back to excuses for versus legitimate reasons, I feel like she's of that school of thought of like, oh, your feelings are just something you deal with and work through, but like there's no real validity to them. I don't think that she believes that, because there are moments where I see her live out like, I think she doesn't want to admit that like feelings are a real thing, that, you know, they can legitimately affect you and like the way you operate. And I even asked a military friend of mine like about morale, and I could probably have, he said morale is huge. It's so important, not just in the military, but in other operations, especially churches. And so it's not just a thing of like feelings are just like, oh, I don't feel like it, but like feelings legit make a difference in how you operate and function. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was good to hear that from a military guy. Now, personal life, ask him a follow-up question about like, how much does somebody's personal life or things they're going through affect their morale, or does that even count as morale? But I get a feeling I would get a more nuanced reply than some might believe. And to just drive my point home, I mentioned, so I've mentioned that I had a coworker who kind of referenced something I did, and that made me feel really happy. Like I was the work of art that somebody decided to copy. And that was a huge encouragement. Well, one day, this was maybe a couple weeks ago, when I had recorded my first new podcast, or maybe I just posted an ad for my podcasting channel. And she's like, oh, what's that experiment thing I saw on your Instagram? And I'm like, oh yeah, did I never tell you that I have a podcast? And she's like, oh no, you didn't. And I'm like, well, I do. And it's something that I haven't been very good about keeping, but I'm trying to do it more. And just the fact that she paid attention to that and was curious enough to go out of her way to ask me, it made me feel energized. And that's why I've just been doing an onslaught of podcasts. I think I've recorded something like 20 new podcasts in the span of just a week or two. And I've been kind of riding the enthusiasm that I got from just her inquiry. Made me feel like wanting to do it. So on the one hand, I have complex emotions or thoughts upon the matter of like feelings and like how they can affect operational excellence, and when they're just excuses and like to not do something. Because I have had to power through, and I try as best as I can to power through, but there are moments when it's like I am inoperable, or because of something, because of the way I'm feeling, I'm not working at peak efficiency. I don't know that I'll have a concrete, solid plan or opinion on the matter, but I do think that feelings are way more important than people give credit for. But anyway, this has been the David Wells Experiment. Hope you have an absolutely super day and all your dreams come true, and I will see you next time. Bye.